to lean in to your superpower. We are Kathleen and Zaina, aka the Lion and the Ram, and we've built an entire podcast on harnessing and utilizing your superpower.
Our wish is for this to be a safe place where we talk about why knowing your superpower is so vital to your success, whether it be personal, professional, or financial.
Right. So the last podcast we discussed, how to fall in love with your superpower is right around Valentine's Day, why other people's opinion of you are none of your business, as a way to fall in love with yourself and your authentic self. And today we are going to be discussing how to get out of your own way to become your own superhero. So it's really all about how to face yourself. It is a you versus you world. And we are super excited to be talking about it. We're going to get a little philosophical today, so stay with us. Buckle in. But we are super excited to be here with you guys. We like to call you our warriors because that's how we think of you every day. Right? Mm-hmm. Against ourselves, we're going against different challenges. We always have to keep our mindset. And so we're going to really dive into mindset today. But first, like we always like to do, we like to check in, see how our week has been, what this topic may bring up for you, Kathleen.
Well, when I think of you versus you, I think of that internal dialogue that we all fight. And, sometimes it's our voice, but sometimes it's the voice of maybe a family member or a friend. And I think you have to be really careful about who you spend your time with, because those are the people that you become most like. I mean, the phrase birds of a feather flock together is a phrase for a reason. Negative people beget negative people, frightened people beget frightened people, and successful people beget successful people. So I think having that internal dialogue and those people that pour into you is super important.
Right. For me, it's that. And also, you could be the most positive person in the world, but if you're constantly around negative energy and negative people and constantly like reading the news and bringing all this negative thoughts into your brain, it's going to affect you no matter how strong-minded you are. It just is. Right. Yeah. So for me, it's that. And it's also the fact of really like how our thoughts control our actions. And so we're going to really dive into that today. That's the you versus you, how to be able to manage what's going on between your ears. Right.
Yeah.
It also brings up, so that's what it brings up for me. So, I think we go through the world most people either looking at like what's happening in our lives that's wrong, mm-hmm. versus what's happening in our lives that's right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's what's wrong versus what's right. It's all about, how, your choice and how you pick and where you pick to pay the most attention to and what perspective you want to have. Something that comes up with me here is I heard Tony Robbins say this. So it's not me, it's him. It's people don't experience life. They experience life that they focus on.
Yes.
Life that they focus on. So if right now you're happy and, everything's going great, it's probably because you're not thinking about all the frustrating and annoying and all the crap, I should say, that's pissing you off, right? So it's almost like we're deleting the negative if we're happy in the moment. It's not that the negative isn't there. It's just, we're just choosing not to think about it in that moment. If you're unhappy, then it's probably you're deleting all the great things that are happening in your life and you're super focused on what's going wrong.
Well, we've all known of those people that seem like they, they're happy no matter what their circumstances are. Because they're choosing to be happy. They're choosing to see things as a blessing or choosing to see, the silver lining or whatever it is. And then we also know those people that look like they have a pretty good, like they have it pretty good, and they're still over there gritching about things. And you're like, you know what? If I had all of those things, not to say that they have a charmed life, they don't have problems, but they're so hyper focused on those problems that they have that they don't even get to enjoy the blessings that they do have.
Right.
So I think perspective and these internal thoughts have a lot to do with the quality of life that you end up with.
Right. Exactly. And you could be, you could have grown up and everybody say, could, like myself, for instance, grow up and everybody's like, oh, you're not going to amount to anything. You're not smart. You don't know English. You're going to be horrible. And I could have either chose to, and I thank God I made the right choice at that time. I was only like 8 or 9 years old. But I could have chosen to be like, oh, poor me, and accept what they said. Or instead I chose, well, I'm going to show them. Same scenario, 2 different perspectives of how I want to interpret what somebody, what those negative thoughts or negative saying, the things that people are saying.
Right. You didn't let that sort of penetrate. You had your own sort of internal dialogue about what you could do or what you would do. Right. And it brings up for me this quote that I ran across that I think is so appropriate for today. And I don't know who said it, but I like it, so I'm going to say it. And it says, don't speak negatively about yourself, even as a joke. Your body doesn't know the difference. Change the way you speak about yourself and you can change your life. And it's so amazing to think about how, we talk about vibrations, and this gets a little like woo-woo, but, different vibrations, negative has a different vibration than positive. And they see that even with plants. Like if you talk positively to plants, they flourish and they do so much better. And then if you talk negatively to plants, they die. Right. And these are just plants.
That's crazy. I want you to send me that, where you found that. That's really crazy.
Yeah, it's a study that they did. And for me, I would have never thought that, something without a brain and, without, thoughts and feelings that as we know them could be actually affected by our speech.
Right.
But if you think about just the plants in your house being affected by your speech, think about the effect it has on your family, has on you, everything. It's amazing.
Well, there, as I was searching, there was this one fundamental truth that kept popping up, and which I think if people really understand, it will alter their life immediately. And this is all the great historians, the teachers, the philosophers, the wise men, whatever, throughout history, always agree unanimously. They don't agree on anything except this one fundamental truth, which is called the Great Law, is that if you think in negative terms, you will get negative results. If you think in positive terms, you will get positive results. And all great leaders or, anybody we look up to or that's really changed, our lives on a grand scale understands this. They understand that you can either think positively and get positive results, or you can think negatively and get negative results. What you can't do is think of both at the same time.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Right. So we got to train our mind to find the good in everything. Now, it may be difficult, your car just broke down and you're on the side of the road and you just got in a car wreck and all this stuff. But there is a universal law. So that what I just said was the great law, but there's a universal law called the law of polarity. Mm-hmm. There's always, everything has an equal and whatever opposite. Hot, cold, up, down, right, left, front, back. There's anything in this world without its opposite. Everything has an opposite. So if you're in a negative situation, all you have to do is kind of flip the coin and try to see what the positive is, no matter how bad, and maybe hard to find. I'm not going to try to tell you like it's super duper easy. Okay. But if we can start shifting our mindset to look for the positive, hey, I got into this car wreck, but everybody was safe and no one got hurt. Right. Or, well, now I can get a new car. I don't know. I've been meaning to get a new car and I haven't been able to. Now at least I have to do it. Whatever it is.
Yeah, when I was diagnosed with cancer.
Right. Talking about a big one here.
I mean, not a lot of good stuff at the time. It doesn't feel great. But you do. Mindset's huge in cancer treatment. Huge. And, they tell you like your perspective has a lot to do with your recovery, and you don't have the option to be negative. You have to stay positive. And and every little thing that you can find that has a positive spin to it, you use it. I was stage 3B. Well, I'm glad I wasn't stage 4. Right. That's good. I have cancer, but they have a treatment for it. That's good. All that sort of thing. So, you do have to find the positive, and in cancer treatment, they do say that, your mindset's huge. Right. Those people that survive, in the face of, not having great odds, 9 times out of 10, it's because of their mindset.
Right. I loved it. You said it's all about perspective. It really is. If you focus on the obstacles, guess what you're going to see? More obstacles. You're going to see the obstacles. And they're going to be your thoughts. And we're going to talk a second about how thoughts dictate feelings and which affect your actions. But if you focus on the path through the trees, like you were with your cancer treatment, then you will see the path through the trees.
Right.
Right. Yep. There's a couple quotes that I pulled that I want to share with you. One is by Shakespeare. It's our doubts are our traitors, or our doubts are our traitors and make us lose the good we often might win by fearing to attempt. I know it's a little convoluted, but I think what he's saying is all the doubts that we have are kind of traitors to our own selves. And we lose the good of what's going to be happening to us, and we lose the ability to get to that win because we're afraid to attempt it because of all these doubts that are in our brain that are really
they sabotage us. To me, that's what it's saying is these doubts sabotage us, because then it keeps us from even trying. And I think those are the things that we regret most, are the things that we don't even try to do.
And then a corollary to that is James Bernard Shaw, who's, I think, one of the, he's not the level of Shakespeare, but pretty darn close in our day. He says, people are always blaming their circumstances for what they are, for where they are. I don't believe in circumstances, he said. The people who get to the top in this world are the people who get up and look for the circumstances they want. And if they can't find them, they make them.
Right.
And so what he's saying, I don't believe in circumstances. You can't blame your circumstances.
Right.
The people who get to where they want to be in this world are the ones that look for the circumstances they want. Again, all about person.
Yeah. It's kind of like that book that I read, Obstacle is the Way. And I've mentioned it before, but this is very similar. And it's about looking at the obstacle as something that's good and that's going to teach you, and basically telling you that your answer is inside that obstacle. So rather than avoid it, you should address it. And it's a lot about mindset, because when you look at the obstacle, don't look at the obstacle for it being in your way and you now can't move forward and there's all these problems. You look at it and think, okay, what is this going to teach me? What am I going to, how is this going to make me pivot and do things differently so it makes me more efficient at work? Or, it shows me something about myself that I didn't realize, and then I can work on and make myself better. The obstacle's the way, but if you're not looking for it, if you're not looking for the opportunity, all you're going to see is that big mountain in your way.
So what we're really talking about today is you versus you, is your thoughts are incredibly powerful. So how does this work? Your thoughts dictate how you feel. Yes. Your feelings affect your actions.
Right.
So if we can change our thoughts, we can change our actions.
Right.
And we're literally trying to get out of our own way. This is the you versus you. Mm-hmm. Your life is moving in the direction of your strongest thought.
Ooh, that's good. That's very true. It's very true.
So with anything that you do in life, you have to have a thought before you can initiate an action, right? You're
Right.
not going to just do something without thinking about it, hopefully. I mean, we're not like 2 years old, right? So if you believe that your thoughts have something to do with your destiny, which I believe, and has everything I've ever read, everything I've ever, educated myself on or heard about or people I wanted to emulate have all said this. The first thing you have to do is decide, are you going to be defined by a vision of your future or live by the memories of your past?
That's where that self-talk comes in.
Right. And there's many ways to get to the things that we want out of life. And it all begins with how we choose to think. There's 7 little words. I think it's in scripture somewhere. You're more, probably know it more than me, but it's like, as you think, so shall you be.
Yes.
Right? Is that true? I don't know the proper.
There is a scripture that, that basically what you are, what your thoughts are. I can't remember the exact verbiage, but yes, that is it.
So 7 little words. Yeah. As you think, so shall you be. So your world will reflect your own feelings or thoughts back at you.
Right. Yeah.
So this is kind of the woo-woo part, but it's so essential to understand.
Well, it's interesting because we're talking about this vibration sort of idea or projecting out, your thoughts, the things that you do and the way that you behave, it just in life and in our community, our society, projects to other people what you think about yourself. And they're going to believe you. So if you project to other people that you're not qualified to do something, they're going to believe you. You're not qualified, and you're not going to get that opportunity that you've always wanted because your self-doubt has told them that you're not qualified. So I think that has a lot to do with those things that you focus on, all about that thought process. Your first thought leads to something because your self-doubt is going to make you behave in a certain way. And that's going to project to others how you feel about yourself. So in order to change that path or that self-fulfilling prophecy, really, you have to change that first thought. And it's like, you hear about those little exercises where they say the thing that you focus on becomes the thing that you see everywhere. Mm-hmm. So like if you focus on red cars, all of a sudden you see red cars everywhere. Or if you start, like you said, watch the news and the bad things are everywhere. And that's all we see now are bad things because that's all I'm looking for. But if you turn that, if you are looking for opportunities in every situation and you believe that those opportunities are there, you will see them.
Right.
And in order to take those on, you're going to have to change your self-talk to be positive and to say, I may not know how to do this, but I can learn, or I'm going to try it. I believe that I have the ability to, develop the skill or learn the skill or whatever it is. And because, coming back around and maybe just be rattling off, but what you put out to people is what they believe. So if you don't believe in yourself, they're not going to believe in you either.
Right. So in this world, we have like a physical world, right? We have an internal world, and I do also believe in a spiritual world, but then we have a physical world. Mm-hmm. And the physical world really is just senses, right? We're just like, we're born, these things happen, lights, experiences, sounds, and then you die. And then so how we choose to interpret that middle part, the sensory information, is really up to us. And it's almost like people say, oh, it's by circumstance. And look, no one had, I shouldn't say no one, but I doubt very few people had the kind of growing up that I had. I was born in the middle of a very brutal civil war. So, and it's not just me, people, I forget who it is, but, there was this famous Holocaust, survivor, and he wrote the book and how he viewed this very horrible things happening to him. Right. You could either take those things and it's horrible, you can't change it. And that's what's so hard when you're in a war or when you're in something like that, that's literally completely beyond your control. Yes. Like every which way, you can still control your thoughts. You can still control how you choose to react to it.
Right.
You can be like, woe is me. This is horrible. No good. I'm just going to die and kill myself, which is a lot of, I think, and same with you with cancer. If you had that mindset, it probably may have led you down that road. Or
Yeah.
you just no, like I choose to look at the positive. I'm going to get out of this. I'm going to be better. I'm going to be stronger. I'm going to be more resilient. I'm going to,
Right.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of what you hear from people in these survivor stories. When you hear survivor stories, like that show I Survived, I hate that show. It stresses me out. Even though I know they lived because they're talking about it, but it stresses me out.
I've never seen that show, so I'm not sure.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, my husband loves to watch that show and it stresses me out.
Watch it, but if you could give us a little for those of us that don't know.
It's these people that are like in these perilous situations that could very well kill them, or they've gotten injured in the woods and they're the only ones out there and they've got to get to safety, or whatever it is. Stress me out. But anyway, what it comes down to, literally what you see from all of these people who have all different experiences, is it was just that their mindset was they were not going to die.
Yes.
They were not going to. So it was literally just their will. It was their mindset. It was their thought process that to keep going, to go one more step, to not get tired, to whatever it was. And if their mindset had been different, they probably wouldn't have made it.
Right.
But it was all about how they decided to think about. And even though they didn't know they were doing that in that moment, it was about how they decided to think about what they were going through.
Right. So this is the good news. The good news.
We have good news, guys.
Good news. The good news is you have incredible power over your own thoughts.
Yes.
You can actually, we'll give you some hints later on, some steps on how you do this. If you're like, I don't know how to do it, it's so foreign to me, but you can actually choose what you think about.
Yes.
And what you think about determines how you live. And I believe, and people I follow and read about also believe, this is maybe one of the greatest discoveries of our generation as humans, is that we can alter our lives by altering the attitudes in our minds or of our minds.
Yes.
So change your story, change your life.
Yeah.
Like people can tell you your whole life that you're a piece of crap. Yeah. And your brain can go, screw you, like I was mentioning, I'll show you, and then I'm going to make something of myself.
Yeah.
Or people can tell you, oh, you're beautiful, you're perfect, you're the best, you're the greatest in sliced bread, and you still don't believe them and get depressed about your life and think you're nobody.
Right.
It sounds kind of simplistic, but it's so true.
It is so true. That's the whole reason why you see, people that are brought up in the same circumstances and then they do completely different things, and it's because of what they choose to believe and what they choose to see. We're all brought up in a certain way. And yes, our parents pour into us and we do somewhat are governed by our circumstances when we're young, but we get to a point in life where you can no longer blame your life on how you were raised. You are now an adult. You have control over your mindset. You have control over what you choose to believe, and you have control over how your life goes, believe it or not. Now, yes, things will come to you that you don't expect, but as Zaina was saying, how you interpret that problem or how you view it will have a dramatic effect on which way you go. And we all have a choice in life, and you should choose to have the life that you want to have. And the way that you do that is by doing this mindset work and focusing on how you think about what you're thinking about. Why are you doing that? And how are you going to change it?
Right. And it's literally one of the most difficult things. I've worked with a lot of people, high level, high achievers, right? Most difficult thing for people to do is to change their thoughts. Why is that?
I think a couple of things. You may not, that may have been a rhetorical question, Zaina, but I
want to know like what you think, and I'm going to like maybe put them in my sense as well.
I always have an answer. I always have something to say. I think a couple of things. I think because it's habit. So we do it before we even think about it. Mm-hmm. and it's just a reaction. This is what I always do, and this is how I react, or this is my thought. I think it's habit. And then I do think it is what we really think about ourselves. Right. How do we value ourselves? So I think it can be a couple of things.
Right. And I want to piggyback on what you said. I think it's because to change our thoughts, we almost have to change the way we approach reality itself.
Agreed. Yes.
Right. So like I was kind of alluding to before, we all grew up a certain way. We all believe like this is how the world should kind of be. This is our reality.
Right.
And it's super hard to think, well, two things. One, not everyone has the same reality as us.
It's true.
And two, that because it's kind of a story you're telling yourself. And two, now you have to say to yourself, oh my goodness, I have to change my reality. All the things that I've been seeing, I've only been seeing blue cars my whole life. And now I have to look for red cars and change and start to look out for red cars. And it's funny because as soon as you say, I want to see red cars, you no longer see blue cars.
No, they're going to be everywhere.
And it's like, I mean, maybe I'll find the research and put it in the show notes, but there's lots of research around this as well. I didn't prepare it for beforehand, but I know it's out there because I've ran across it before.
Yep. It's there.
Right. So, because it's all going on literally in your brain.
Right.
People say it's in your head. I hate that because it's kind of like it's not real, but it is kind of in your head. Like it really is in your brain. Whatever you think and you believe will very much shape your reality, from what risks you take and what actions you perform, and also just everyday experiences of reality.
Right.
So the first thing is almost realizing that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So once you know that once you know that you are kind of what you think and what you think about, and then what you think about expands.
Right.
Right. So if all you think about is blue cars, you're going to always see blue cars. Okay. Or if you're thinking a negative, you're only going to see negative stuff happening. So it expands.
Right.
And you start to then you hopefully, and I'm hoping everybody that's hearing this can realize this, hopefully you'll start to become real careful about what you think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, there's nothing quote unquote wrong with you. I used to always grow up, what's wrong with me? Oh, can't I get this done? Whatever, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, my daughter says that to me. My daughter has a chromosomal condition, and she'll be like, there's something wrong with me because she has to take all this medicine and all this sort of stuff. And so I'm trying to change her mindset to be, there's nothing wrong with you. You just have this condition. And it's not right or wrong that you have to take this medicine and your siblings don't. It just is. And aren't we lucky that we can take this medicine? And aren't we lucky that it's, a pill and a liquid, and, it's easy to take the medicine. So, so there isn't anything wrong with you. And I want us to get away from that idea anyway of this is right and this is wrong with regard to like mindset and thinking and stuff like that, because that traps, I think, more people than anything. Oh, it's wrong. I'm wrong. No, it's just, sometimes it just is.
It is what it is. And
it's just change it.
This is right and this is wrong it is what it is.
Right.
It is what it is. I may not agree with it. Maybe I don't want it to happen, but it just is what it is. And just to piggyback about why this is, again, really hard for people to change is something you said it is habits. It's the habit of thinking the way we think and have always seen the world view, our reality. And it's really, we got to realize it's our story.
Right.
It's those story we're telling ourselves.
Right.
And that if you change those habits, that story, you're going to have a different experience.
Right.
So
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like when I was young, I remember this, I was in, grade was I think in ninth grade. No, probably earlier than that. Yeah, I think ninth grade. My math teacher was like, you're horrible at math. You're never going to be good at math. You're just horrible. And I was just like, and it's funny because I really liked math and I thought I was really good at it.
Right.
And so I could have taken what he said and really internalized it. Or I thank God I did it different because I ended up graduating with a math degree, a bachelor's of science in mathematics. But Just making that switch of just not believing it, thinking, no, I am good at math, despite him telling me I'm not.
Right.
If I had agreed with him, oh, how did he know I wasn't good at math? I would have had a completely different experience when it comes to math.
Right.
Or,
right.
My reality, my life.
Right. Well, I'm glad you brought up the practical application, because it's kind of what I wanted to, explain a little bit so people can get an idea of how is this going to show up in your life, this negative self-talk. And I've seen it, I wanted to bring a couple of ways. I've seen it come up in people's personal relationships, in my own as well. I mean, we all have negative self-talk that bubbles to the surface. But if you've got such a negative self-talk that you don't feel worthy of your significant other, no matter how much they pour into you and no matter how much positive feedback they give you, it's never going to be enough, because it's never going to change your mind about how you feel about you. And the problem that could raise is that could be fatal to your relationship with this wonderful person. Right. And at no fault of their own, and not necessarily any fault of yours either. But if you know you're doing this, look at what you're doing, and you know you're doing this, you need to change your story. You need to change your mindset that you're not worthy of this wonderful relationship, when all signs point to the opposite. And sometimes those wonderful spouses or significant others can't carry that along for a long time. So it could be fatal to the relationship. So if you see this coming up in your relationship with someone, you can start to change your mindset and accept, what they're pouring into you, and build a healthy relationship. And then the other way, in a professional setting, is what I call self-sabotage. You want to get a particular job or a project, and then, either you don't get it because you're projecting to everyone that you're not qualified, or you actually get it, and now your negative self-talk is so loud that it actually prevents you from performing the way that you normally would perform in something that you are well qualified to do. So it can actually sabotage the things that you are actually able to do. Just your thought process.
Right. So that's what we're talking about, right? How to overcome those discouraging or negative thoughts, right? So there's never going to be a time or a place where you're just not going to think negatively. Like, unless you're like, I don't know. I mean, I think we've all met those like people, but it's very, very rare. As an average person, negative things are going to happen, or you're going to get triggered because of your past or whatever, and you're going to have negative thought. So like you said, oh, I'll never get to my dream, or I'll never meet the right person. Okay. The key is not to be like, oh, I'm never going to have a negative thought. And how do I stop negative thought? The key is, just because they come in your brain doesn't mean you have to think them.
Right.
Think of it like a doorway of your mind. Okay. This thought comes in, there's a door, and you can choose, yes, I'm going to give you access to my feelings, because thoughts affect your feelings.
Right.
Or, I'm not going to, I'm in charge what I can give access to. It's a negative thought, yes, but that doesn't mean I have to actually feel what the thought is telling me, because I'm not going to listen to it, or I refute it. Like somebody telling me you're not good at math or whatever, I refute it. I don't care, or you're ugly, or you're fat, or whatever it is. I refute it. I don't believe it.
Right.
And that way, if you don't believe it, it's not going to affect how you feel.
Right.
If you don't allow it.
It's such a game changer for me when someone said that, and I don't know who said it, but that you don't have to believe every thought that comes into your head. Just because it's in your head doesn't make it true.
Right.
And I remember thinking that, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's true. Like, you can have a thought and decide whether you think this is a true thought and get rid of it. And just because it's in your mind doesn't make it true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was pretty empowering.
It really kind of piggybacks with our prior episode of what other people. Now it's like, yes, what other people think about you is none of your opinion, but also what your negative thoughts and think about yourself is not true either, and you shouldn't allow them to be in.
Right.
So if there are things right now echoing in your head as you guys are listening to us that are stopping you from living your best life,
right?
You need to kind of speak back to them like you would if it was a person telling you whatever it is they're telling you that you don't agree with. No? Or you just say, I don't care what you say. I believe what I believe. We agree to disagree, whatever. Me and
there's the door.
To each other. We rarely agree on anything, and we always like, okay, we'll just agree to disagree. Another thing we're agreeing to disagree about. So because if you say to yourself, hey, I'm never going to find love. I hear this a lot with my single girlfriends, right? Never going to find love. Never going to meet a decent person. Blah blah blah. There's all these websites. There's all these things. Guess what? It's going to become true. Like you said, a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it works both ways. So if you think the positive, you're going to experience positive. So if you think, no, every guy on the dating app is amazing and I think I could find my love, then that's going to become true. So it works both ways. So what do? We expose the lies that are in our head, the chatter.
Yes.
The negative Nancy, we manage it and we expose it.
Right. Yes.
You don't allow your thought to be anything that you don't want to have manifest, or otherwise it's going to show up in your life. So if you think negatively and think, oh, negative things aren't going to happen to me, guess what? They're going to happen to you, and they're going to happen to you in a very accelerated rate, the more negative things you think about. And I don't know if you've ever tried this or experimented in your life, but I have, because I always this is like a lot of what I do. My business is called State of Mind. So I'm very big on state of mind. So I was like, I wonder if I start thinking this negative thing's going to happen. It was like an insurance issue, and it actually ended up happening. And I felt like, oh gosh, I ended up manifesting.
Yeah.
It's odd how, I want you guys to try it. Have you ever had that experience?
Yes. You create the thing that you're most afraid will happen.
Because you can't get it out of your mind, and you keep thinking,
because you're like, oh, this is going to happen. I know it's going to happen. And it happens a lot when you go to court. You're like, oh, this would be the worst thing. And so that's probably what's going to happen, rather than thinking, well, it could, so I'm going to be prepared for that. But there's 5 other things that could happen as well that are better. But when I think of those things that I'm like, I really hope this doesn't happen, my very next thought is, okay, if it does, then what do I do? Because I'm looking for that opportunity or that ability to spin it around. What else can I do with it? Yeah. But you can definitely manifest and create either negative things or positive things in your life, depending on what you put out there. And I have noticed that, as I started to try to control those thoughts and get rid of those thoughts, I have noticed a change in trajectory in my life, and how what you put out there does start to come to you. And if you start to verbalize, these are the opportunities I want in life, those things will start to come to you. And it's amazing how it does work, but it does.
Right. Believe it or not, there is actual steps. This is a little philosophical kind of discussion. So if you guys are listening and are like, okay, well, how do I really do this in real life? There are some things you can do. So what do you do? And some of us, you may be like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. It sounds hokey pokey or whatever. Trust me, we're not the first ones telling you guys this. This has been shown over and over, and manifestations do happen. So what you do is you sit down first and you figure out what you want. And you figure out what you want specifically. And this is, in my world, when I ask owners, hey, well, how much do you want? How much money do you want to gross, in your business, for example? Oh, you want to take home? Oh, I want a lot of money. Well, how much is a lot? No one knows what a lot of is. Okay. So you got to be specific as you can. I want to take $1 million. Why? Because if you're like, I just want to take $1 million because it just sounds good, you're not going to achieve it because you don't know what to spend your money on. But if you're like, I need $1 million because I'm going to buy a house and I need $200,000 for the down payment, and I want to buy a new car and a private school and know exactly how much each thing costs. All of a sudden, now we know
Right.
why the motivation behind it, and you're more likely to achieve it, right? So
Right.
you write down exactly what you want, you put it on a card, and trust me, this works. You carry that card around with you and you read it, or you put it somewhere in your house where you're going to see it every time. Like I have like a vision board that I look at here in my office every time I walk in my office. Think about it, look at it, read it, because what ends up happening is your mind starts to form images. Again, you need a thought.
Yeah.
To affect a feeling, which eventually going to affect an action. So that thought that you thought was so unreal about having $1 million, but if you write it down and you see it and you know exactly what you're going to do with it and you carry it about around and you look at it, now all of a sudden it's not so pie in the sky because you've literally formed an image in your mind of what that life's going to be like for you.
Right.
And I just want to say one other thing. If you think about all the ways you can't get to the $1 million,
oh, well.
You know what I'm saying? So we need to think about how we can. So you could be carrying this around with you and you could be looking at it and you could say, oh, I don't know. I don't think this can actually happen. Guess what? It's not. So we got to also make sure that the thought process around what we want that we're carrying about around and looking at is actually, yes, I can. And this is how I can.
Right. You got to buy in.
Right.
You got to buy in. And it's a decision. You got to get rid of the doubts and decide that they're not valid. They don't apply to you, whatever it is. Get rid of those and decide that, yes, this is doable and here's why. And you need to be really sure that what you want to accomplish is what you want and not what someone else is telling you that you should want. Because I have seen when people try to accomplish these things that they don't actually really want, it doesn't really work because that's not really what they want. Right. So for you to accomplish these things in your life, you need to know that that's you, that's what you want for your life, not what someone else is telling you you should want for your life.
And if you guys want to know how to do that, if you haven't heard, I think it was episode 2 about finding your superpower, go back to that because that is a precursor. So as we build these episodes, they kind of build on each other. And I see it kind of like a chapter book, So you got to know, so we did talk about that is super important. That's literally like our chapter 2 of the book or of developing your superpower and finding your authentic self. Is in order to start thinking these thoughts, to not stand in your own way, you got to be very clear on what is speaking to you. So go back to that episode if you haven't, or re-listen to it if you need to.
Yeah.
So the second thing, after you kind of write down and figure out exactly and kind of carry it around with you or always kind of seeing it, is you make sure you seek people that you would like to emulate and you go to that person or someone like that person for advice.
Right. Yeah. I've seen people everybody has an opinion and everybody wants to give you advice, whether they know what you're doing or not, so that's always fun. But when these people are giving you advice, you need to look at this person and think, is this person living the way that I seek to live? Have they accomplished the things that I'm trying to accomplish? If someone has not accomplished, or in my opinion, has a successful business, whatever I deem to be successful, I'm not going to go to them or listen to them for business advice. If someone's giving me marriage advice, and they don't have a successful long-term marriage, I'm not going to listen to them either. So you really need to choose who you get counsel from, who's giving you advice. And that's another thing. You need to look at whether or not you accept or reject what they're telling you based on what they've accomplished. Right. So just be careful about that because, again, whoever you're around is pouring into you and they're going to be giving you feedback, and you're going to have to decide whether this is feedback you're going to take. Yes, this is going to help me achieve my goals. Yes, this is, positive self-talk, or no, this is not. And I need to reject it and build a different circle.
Right. So like, if you want to make a lot of money, you don't go to someone and ask like your neighbor or your family member who hasn't made a lot of money, how do I make a lot of money? not
exactly.
the person you should be. They may read all sorts of books, whatever, but that's not the person you should be seeking advice for. Go out after, So now, if you don't have those people in your life, which I didn't for the longest time,
Yeah.
there's books. Carry books around with you. And books have been my greatest. Like for me, one of my people that I emulated, I hope she's listening to this as one day, is Oprah. She doesn't know me from a hole in the wall, but I literally emulated my life around her, and got me a lot of those bad negative mindset that I had in the victim, that I felt growing up, because all these horrible, no good, very bad things were happening to me, and I couldn't control, and I really owe it a lot to her. For the first time, I started thinking, I don't have to believe or just, play victim, or think that I'm just, the consequence of my circumstance,
Yeah. Well, she's actually a great example of mindset, because I listened to a podcast that was a little bit of a biography about her. And it was very interesting because she knew innately in herself that she could do these things. And so she had that positive self-talk and that positive mindset that she could accomplish these things, and that everything that she had been through worked together to put her where she was and to prepare her for where she was. And that's what I got out of that podcast about her, was she believed in herself so much, and that's what really drove her success. Nobody believed in her the way that she believed in herself, and she didn't need them to, which was amazing, and something that I think we could all sort of garner from her story.
Right. So get, some good books out there, right?
Yes.
About how to move from like the victim to like being creator of your own world. I love the book, The Power of TED. By David Emerald. That's one of the books that I've constantly read over and over. And it's a funny story, and maybe I'll tell you another day, but that's literally how me and my boyfriend got together. But that's a whole other story. Was over that book. The second book that's really, really good, by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. Right. It's a little archaic. It's, I don't know when it's written, like long time ago. There's a lot of, the pronouns aren't correct or whatever, but still it's a really good one about how to really change that mindset that we have.
Right.
Especially, I think next episode, we're going to get into the mindset of money. So we're going to dive into that. And then another really good one that I'm starting to read now is called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. Another I'm not getting anything from I think he's dead. He's been dead for I don't know how many years, decades. But it's, it's one of, and so same with Napoleon Hill. But it's one of those like iconic books that if you don't have a person, or you don't really, and I would say do both. Okay. If you can, but if you can't, there's always books out there that you can really start like changing how you think about things.
Right. There was one exercise I wanted to mention that I have done, and I thought was very interesting about changing your mindset, is when you have this thought that you can't do this thing, to write it down, and then come up with all the reasons why this thought is not true. So, and then you start to make a list. You're writing it down. You're not just doing it in your mind. You're writing down all the reasons why this thought is not true. I can't do this thing. Okay, I'm going to come up with all the reasons why that's not true. And then you go into, what are the things that I can do to prove that this is not true? So now we've gone from the negative thought to proving the negative thought wrong in our mind. And now we're writing down what we're actually going to physically do to change that and prove it wrong. And then at the very end, you write down the exact opposite of this negative thought of I can't do this thing. Then the very last thing you write down is I can do this thing. And that is the thing that you keep. Right. I can do this thing. And you focus on that thing and doing the things that you need to do. I'm saying thing a lot in order to accomplish what you want to accomplish. So drink is a drinking game. So, I mean, an example would be, I want to lose weight. Well, the first thought, I can't lose weight. Okay, I'm going to write that down. I can't lose weight. Now, what are all the reasons why that's not true? Well, I can control what I eat. I can exercise. I can, build out time in my day to go walk. I can, all of these things. And that's why that's not true. So what is the result? The conclusion is I can lose weight. And these are all the reasons, all the things that I can do to accomplish that goal. So I thought that was a really interesting exercise.
I think that's a great exercise. I would even add one more step to that. Is actually writing down in present tense. I am whatever weight, or I made $1 million or whatever. Doing it in present tense, I like you already have it.
You've already done it.
And you've already done it, and carrying that around with you along with the other thing, and you read it often, and then you will start to believe it.
I like that.
I am $1 million business owner.
Right. Yeah.
Even though you're not right now, I am, and you will eventually start to see your personality change into acting. I've seen this so many times, like $1 million business, or start thinking. You'll start taking vacations like $1 million business owner, and all of a sudden you become $1 million business owner. Now, we're not saying, please don't get me wrong. I don't want you to throw away all your money and be whatever.
No.
But I'm talking about from a mindset standpoint, how you carry yourself, and you literally see your personality change.
Right.
Seen it so many times. I can't even tell you.
Yeah.
If you start to believe it and you read it and it becomes part of you, at first you're not going to believe it.
Right.
Eventually you will.
Right.
And then your personality will change to compass that. The personality will change, like you are a fit person that has how much ever weight was lost. And then all of a sudden those pounds just kind of go away go away.
It's true.
It's odd. I know a lot of people will be like, whatever, when they're, hearing this, but please, the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. It's amazing.
And then when you get an idea in your brain, ask yourself, will that idea help me get to where I want to go?
Right.
And if it doesn't, reject it. Reject it.
Yeah, what I think of is I always think, does this serve me?
Right.
It's kind of how I think of it. It's the same thing, but I think, does this serve me? Does it benefit me in a way? Does it help me? No. And if it doesn't, get rid of it.
Right. You reject it.
Just because you thought it doesn't mean it's true.
Right. Being that doorkeeper, that's how you reject the negative thoughts.
Yep.
I'm stupid. No, I reject that. Oh, you can't do it. No, I reject that. Because it's not going to help me to get to where I want to be.
Exactly.
Thinking you can't is not going to get you to where you want to be.
No.
Right? So all this we're saying is that happiness is a choice.
Is a choice.
And if you believe, it's all about belief and perspective and, positive thinking. If you believe it's a choice, then you can start working on it.
Right.
And you got to also believe that your own conditions are how you're perceiving the world and your reality is what's making you unhappy.
Yeah.
So you have to uncondition yourself.
Right.
From that reality, and you don't yes, you can read books and that's great, and you can ask people, and we're obviously saying do that, but the answer is really at the end of the day inside yourself, and it starts with the realization that if you don't like the results you're getting in life, you have to change you.
Right.
Because they are your results.
Right. You're creating this. You don't like it? Let's change it.
Yeah. So in order to change yourself, you have to find something about yourself that you want to change. This isn't earth shattering.
It's so hard to do. What could I possibly want to change about myself?
You got to have this hard conversation. You got to study yourself. And I think this is what this podcast is all about, at least for me. Mm-hmm. Finding your authentic self. We say superpower, but that's really what it is. Your authentic self.
Right.
What are you really? What is it? You're not your name. You're not this body, right? When people ask you, who are you? Oh, and you say your name, and I'm an attorney or whatever. But that's not who you are. Who am I really inside? Like a sense of awareness of who you are, and as long as we lack that awareness of who we are, we're constantly locked into the physical world and we let things outside of us control us.
Right. Yeah.
And something I've read, and I don't know if this is accurate or not, but something like 95% of the population is reacting to life and not living their life. So how do you live your own life? Well, you need to stop. You need to study yourself.
Right.
The biggest part of who you are is something you can't see. It's a non-physical,
Right.
not in the physical dimension.
Well, that's kind of what happened when I was diagnosed with cancer. It made me step back and look at my life and think, what do I want out of this? And I did feel like I was being reactionary, and I didn't feel like I was being proactive to create the life that I wanted to live. So don't wait for a cancer diagnosis for that. Go ahead and do that now, and then you can start to really live that life.
Right. Mm-hmm. And where do thoughts come from? They come from the non-physical. Okay. Our thoughts come from, whatever. And so you got to create that image that you want in your mind. Being cancer free. What does that look like?
Right.
I don't know if you did that or not. Yeah. What does that look like? How am I going to feel when I'm cancer free? Creating it, and then the physical world will actually manifest it for you.
Yeah.
If you create that image, and if the image is I'm going to die, or negative, no good, very bad, horribleness,
right,
then that's also what you're going to be manifesting. And then you say, "Oh, how did this happen?" Well, you know how.
Right.
How?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can do it. I want to hear from everybody and hear how they've applied this and how they've seen it start to change things. Right. So, participate in the group, the Facebook group. Let us know what you think, what's going on. We want to hear from you.
Right. And I just want to leave you with a couple of quotes here, and I want to dig a little bit more before I let you go today, if that's okay. I saw this quote, people say, what is success? And in our world, everything has to do with maybe monetary success.
Right.
But Florence Nightingale said something to the fact of success is if a person knows who they are and know where they are going and are progressively moving in that direction. So it's anyone that has a goal and moves towards it is successful. Because that. Mother Teresa has had no money, as far as I know. She's considered a success by all accounts.
Yeah.
Right? We can think of so it's not just money and things and all that define our success. I don't think it actually defines our success at all, because you could have all those things and also be miserable.
Exactly. Yep.
Another quote by Charles R. Swindoll, and I think we've all heard this, but maybe we didn't know who said it, but life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you perceive it or how you react to it.
Right. I really believe that's true. I've seen that play out a number of times in my life. I actually try to teach that to my kids too, because it's huge. Your mindset about things happen to you is huge. So,
right. And just remembering when something negative happens, okay, it happened. Now I get to decide how I'm supposed to feel about it and whether I'm going to let it in and let it affect me or not.
Exactly. And what am I going to learn from it?
Right.
If I can.
Because if you allow the negative, then you're going to start to feel bad. And if you feel bad, then you're going to act in that manner. That there's going to be a correlated effect, cause and effect to that feeling.
Right.
So if you feel bad, you're going to react negatively, yell, scream, how dare you, look at it from just that negative viewpoint. And I think we all, do this, but if we can just start slowly, and it's not about perfection, it's just slowly realizing, hey, I don't want to let this in. This is not beneficial to me.
Exactly.
Like you said, what you think, it doesn't necessarily, just because it's a thought, it doesn't mean it's true. And I would almost venture to say that 90% of the time it's not true. If it's on the negative side.
Yeah.
Instead of looking at your partner, oh, he ignored me all day. Maybe you need to look at him and say, because he didn't respond back to me, or he's ghosting me. Well, maybe he's going through his own problems.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, this might not be a reflection of how he views you. This may just be something, use that story again that we create in our mind and that we tell ourselves, rather than, choosing not to believe it's something negative about us. Maybe it's something else going on.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I think we're going to leave it there for today. Thank you, everyone. This is a very important episode. It's probably one of the hardest things to do, but realization is the first step.
Yes.
That you are not your thoughts and that you can actually control and choose a different thought.
Right.
Right?
Yep. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. As you know, on this podcast, we don't sell anything and we have no paid advertisers. So the way that we grow our podcast is organically through you sharing our content. So if there is someone that you think could benefit from this podcast, please share it with them. And as always, like, subscribe, and follow.
Thanks, everyone.